Let's bring in New York Times chief White House correspondent Peter Baker. He's also an MSNBC political analyst. Peter, I'm going to bring you into this conversation, but I'm going to start big with you because you just walked out of that news conference between the French president and Donald Trump, the American president. What stood out to you?
Well, what stood out, of course, was President Macron's very, very strenuous effort to keep this on a friendly basis. They hugged, they shook hands, they smiled, they called each other friend. Macron referred to Trump as Dear Donald. They emphasized their shared values. But in fact, if you listen carefully, you heard how much they diverge on Ukraine, right? As you, I think, probably reported already. President Macron earlier in the day in the Oval Office said it was Russia that is the aggressor. And whereas President Trump was asked if Putin is a dictator, given that he called Zelensky a dictator. He says, well, I use these words. I don't use these words lightly, meaning he wouldn't call Putin a dictator. They also disagreed on aid. Trump repeated something that he keeps saying, which is not true, that the United States has spent $350 billion and Europe only $100 billion. That's just not true. The aid package numbers that we've seen from analysts show that the United States is actually spending a little bit less than Europe. And Macron reached over at one point during the Oval Office session to tap President Trump on the arm to say, no, that's not the case. We're spending real money here. So he's correcting Trump in a gentle way, in a way to maintain the friendship. But the differences are so stark. What happened in the UN today? France joined a resolution condemning the Russian invasion. The United States didn't. Who did the United States vote with? They voted with Russia, North Korea, and Belarus.
Russia, North Korea, and Belarus. The United States voted. Has there ever been another time in history where we voted alongside Russia, Belarus, and North Korea?
Not against our European allies, certainly not that I can recall. And this is, I think, the 93 countries voted for this resolution. We were, in a relatively small minority with some of the worst actors in the world. So it tells you how isolated the United States is when it comes to its new position by Trump on who is responsible for this invasion. Now, there's an effort here to not push Trump too far. That's what you saw Macron do today. That's why he rushed here, I think, to see Trump as early as he could. Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, will be here later in the week. I imagine he will reinforce the same message. President Duda of Poland was here over the weekend, went to CPAC to try to see Trump. They're trying to keep Trump from giving away the store, in effect, with whatever negotiations happen with Russia, since Trump is not involving the Europeans at the table, much less the Ukrainians.
Peter, can you help us understand what the end goal is here? Why Donald Trump is still so warm towards Vladimir Putin, why he continues to believe his word over everybody else's. We saw this during the first administration. It was confounding, and it's still just as confounding. Why would he say that Russia didn't start this war when they did? We watched it happen, unfold in real time. Why does he continue to side with Vladimir Putin? What's the end game?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the enduring mysteries of this Trump presidency, both all the way back to 9 years ago and beyond even. In fact, his affinity for Vladimir Putin has never waned, regardless of whatever Putin has done. He has every time there has been a choice, seemingly sided with Russia over European allies. In the first term, there were still sanctions. There were still actions taken by the United States government, but by people below Trump. When Trump actually heard about them, sometimes he would object. But they like to claim now, well, he was really tough on Russia. It wasn't him. It was the people below him. The people below him last time, they're not here this time. The people who were skeptical of Russia in the first term, they're not in this government. And so he is following his instincts. His instincts are side with the strong over the weak. He has demonstrated time and again that he has an affinity for dictators and autocrats, people like Sisi of Egypt and Erdogan of Turkey. MBS, he just praised him in the East Room as a tremendously respected guy, ignoring the fact that he was responsible for the murder of a journalist for the Washington Post. So, yeah, I think he has a history here, obviously, and he looks at the European allies with skepticism, if not outright hostility.
Peter Baker trying to make sense of the unmake sensible. Put it that way, Peter Baker. Thank you very much.